I think this is part 7 of All Is New Black Rock, also known as the Black Rock Redemption. Mr. Rahman was all set to head for the Black Rock Desert again, but he noticed that in his bank he still had thousands of dollars he collected from being an electrician. He had a big family who divorced him when he became a Muslim, and since he was the only Muslim, he rearranged it that no money would go to his infidel swine ex-family. There would be no will left for them. The money was to go to the state when he died, which he didn't have much problem with since the state was becoming pretty Sharia compliant now, in spite of ISIS now becoming Sharia compliant. In spite of ISIS now destroyed and demoralized by the Kurds. I gotta write something here. Realizing that he still had money, Mr. Rahman decided to stay one more day in Reno, live it up the best he could, then go to the Black Rock Desert on Monday. Since he was staying another day, he decided to see if the LSD girl was still around. Sure enough, she was. Although she looked young enough to be his granddaughter, he remembered that Aisha was only 9 when a 54-year-old Allah's apostle consummated the marriage with her. And since he was in his 40s, and the girl was probably in her 20s, he thought that with his remaining thousands, she might actually kind of find him attractive enough to carry out the last part of Koran 424 and marry her, having a 4-hour marriage with her. Surprisingly, he went with her offer to be with him for the night when he gave her $1,000. How easy it will be for me to have sex with her, he thought, as he remembered Muhammad in Sahih Sound Hadith talking about women being, quote, deficient in intelligence. According to Muhammad, it was their deficiency in intelligence, along with having periods, that had the majority of those in hell to be women. Mr. Rahman wondered why someone should be in hell for having periods and deficient minds that were actually caused by Allah and not the fault of the person for having such conditions. Mr. Rahman fought the urge to think further. No, I've got to change this. Yeah. Mr. Rahman wondered why someone should be in hell for having periods and deficient minds that were actually caused by Allah and not the fault of the person for having such conditions. Period. I should put period there. Mr. Rahman fought the urge to think further and instead concentrated on how he was going to set off the bomb in the Black Rock Desert tomorrow. Okay, I've got to put a period here. Yeah. That's just not good. Mr. Rahman. Yeah. Fought the urge to think further and instead concentrated. Yeah, okay. Yeah, got it. After blowing about $5,000 to the notorious one-armed bandits, Mr. Rahman had the girl convinced he was some kind of millionaire. How would you like to eat in the pepper mill? Mr. Rahman asked the girl. An hour later, Mr. Rahman was sitting at the opposite end of a booth, watching the cute, yummy girl talk and eat. Mr. Rahman loved watching her eat and loved hearing her young girl voice. How he looked forward to paradise when there would be at least 72 of her, he thought. The girl looked at the plate and said, You sure seem to have a thing for pork. Are you trying for a heart attack? Mr. Rahman smiled and said, You'll eventually die from something. The important thing is that you are right with God. The girl smiled and said, My dad told me that. You have a dad? Did you have a dad? He died of a heart attack. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, you have a dad? Did have a dad. He died of a heart attack. He too had a craving for pork. Well, maybe not a craving for it, but he did seem to like his ribs. It is a very tasty beast, Rahman said as he ate the pork roast again. Muslims don't eat pork. Nice to see that you're eating it, making me think you won't rape me tonight. I will take ravishing, though, she said in a cute, sexy sort of way. Rahman felt a stirring in his pants when she said that. He then thought and asked, "So your dad was religious?" "Yes," said the girl, and was strange. And yes, said the girl. And what was strange about it was that he wasn't stupid. He was a doctor, yet he believed in God. Isn't that something? Is that something? Yeah. Rahman quit eating and said, "Why do you think it's stupid to believe in God?" The girl quit eating and said, "It's so apparent that we evolved from apes. Have you seen Lively?" Rahman smiled and nodded. "It's very apparent that we are just animals, with no personal God giving a crap about us. My grandpa became senile recently, and there is no way that we have any kind of eternal soul about us, unless our eternal souls get crazy along with our brains." Rahman smiled and said, "When I look at a girl as cute and pretty as you, I know there has to be an Allah, God, you know. There is no way you could be an accident, girl." The girl thought for a while and said, "When I see all the evil and stupidity in the world, I have a lot more faith to believe there is an Allah, but certainly not a God, at least not one that is caring." Rahman felt like the girl had stabbed him when she said that. He then said, "Why do you think Allah is evil and not God?" I think they're both evil. They created eternal hell, it says in their holy books. Yet, if they are so powerful, why didn't they fix it so we could be good, smart, not the animals we end up being? We are to end up being tortured throughout eternity in hell. Does that make sense? Rahman smiled and said, "God knows best." No way in hell does God know best, and certainly not Allah. If Allah knew best, why would Allah only make it appear that Jesus went to the cross, creating damning Christianity that would send my Christian dad into hell for believing that crap? Answer me that. Rahman suddenly didn't think the girl was so pretty. He then asked, maybe Allah had the foreknowledge to see who would be on the right path and would be off of it? The girl shook her head and said, "Muslims are just like Christians. They confuse predestination with all-knowing. It's clear in both books, God and Allah are willing you into hell or willing you into heaven." My dad was so consumed with this that he ended up saying he has to believe that there is a universal salvation for all eventually, or that God of the Bible is just as bad as evil Allah in the Koran. He believed in second chances? Asked Rahman. He believed there was a second chance in Christianity, but he only based it on two scriptures that I'm aware of. What were they? One went, "As in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall all be made alive." The other went something like, "For we trust in the living God, who is the Savior of all men, especially those that believe." But if that is so, then why does God have the Bible saying hell is eternal? It's just like Islam, if you ask me, contradictory. And then there are the fossils of dinosaurs we have. How do Christians and Muslims get around that? Both the Bible and Quran talk about Noah's Ark, but wouldn't there be the remains of such a ship? Mr. Rahman then said, "If there is no God, no Allah, or any eternal kind of God, then you are stuck with the belief that energy was always being there. It was always here, being that energy can't be created or destroyed." "I'm fine with that," said the girl. "We can see energy. We can't see God." Mr. Rahman felt a little doubt creep into him, and he nearly shouted back, but there's you. You can't be an evolved ape. You certainly make me believe in a god. Oh, sure, atheists always talk about the building blocks of life and the building blocks of life, the building blocks of life this and the building blocks of life that. But how in the world could those building blocks of life take on complexity in an ancient tide pool or ancient thermal sea vents or ancient thermal sea vents that would create something to the point where there was on and off switching to make something as complex as a simple cell? What you think of about it is not simple at all. I mean, to have a living cell function is like having a city with people going to work and making things happen. And you think all that came about by swirling about in ancient thermals or tide pools? Rotman started talking about a video he saw on YouTube about cell mitosis. The girl quit eating with the food in her mouth. She chewed some more, swallowed, and smiled, saying, "You're funny." "Well?" asked Mr. Rothman with a little bit of desperation in his voice. Rothman went on and said, "Your DNA has, again, on and off switches in it, so you don't have a long nose or a button nose. By having in your cells die off at the right time, it's because parts of you are programmed to die at a certain point to make you who you are. You look fantastic because of the way parts of you died as programmed in your DNA." The girl thought, then said, "It is hard for me to be an atheist when you put it all that way. Call me a deist, because the problem I have with religion is that it seems to place so much importance on us lowly, stupid humans who didn't ask to be born. I mean, did you ask to be born? I sure have no memory of saying to some god, 'Gee, I want to be born into a life where I'll look really cute and sexy for about 20 years, then ignored and in pain for the last 10 years of it, only to then worry that I might end up in eternal damnation because you, oh God, have dinosaur bones being dug up with radiocarbon readings that don't match the world only being 6,000 years old. I really want to live in such doubts when you make me a little girl to grow up with such a threat later down the road.' Well, I highly doubt that I was ever wanting to be born with such doubts. You know that? We are born. We come into this world, thrown into a game none of us have memories asking to play in, where you find out later in the game that there is some kind of god, Allah, threatening you with eternal damnation if you don't believe in it. On top of it, it makes it hard for you to believe in it, with the talk of a big boat and animals, and all you have is dinosaur bones with no bunny rabbit fossils in with them to show that we existed all at the same time. I mean, if there is a god, Allah, it seems to be a trickster. And you want to know something? I really don't like tricksters. I really don't. It seems that if there was a god or Allah that cared about us, that were merciful, well, such eternal hell-threatening gods would leave more clues to their existences. But I will grant you that it is hard to be a stone-cold atheist." "Thank you," said Rothman, relieved. "You're welcome. Now, how can you prove there is a personal God for you? How?" Rothman smiled and said, "I will make love to you tonight, and you will know there is a personal God." I think I'll